Hello students, welcome to my channel Biology Foundation. This is part 1 of Unit 3 Structure and Function of Plants, Grade 6 CBSE or ICSE. So in the previous lectures where we discussed Unit 1 and Unit 2, Unit 1 talked about the various characteristics that define a living organism from a non-living thing, and we have seen the classification of these living organisms in detail as how plants and classified and animals are classified under the artificial system and even under the natural system of classification, right? So in this unit, let's understand the structure and function of plants. Okay, so on the planet Earth, we find innumerable plants where each plant is quite unique. The in its height, in its shape, in its form, size, right? Some plants are very gigantic, some plants are very microscopic. Few plants are tall, while few plants grow only up to 1 meter height. Some plants grow as bushes, and in some plants, the leaves are completely reduced into needles or spines. And if you see the leaves also vary completely in their shape. You can see how the take different shapes, and you have flowers also. They are of different types, right? If you see rose or like your rafflesia, the flowers. Rafflesia, it produces the biggest flower. The plant Rafflesia, it is the biggest flower. Rose, tulips, they produce beautiful flowers. Tomatoes, the flowers are too small, right? So, though plants are quite different, they're unique, but still they have common function. That's because of certain similarities, structural similarities that are seen in plants. Okay, so any flowering plants belong to which division? They belong to phanerogams. Okay, so basically, any flowering plant, it has a root system and a shoot system. Okay, what does the root system mainly consist of? It consists of roots. Okay, root system is the system which is present in the soil that constitutes the root system. And what does the root system contain in it? Roots. Okay, shoot system consists of all the parts of the plant which are present above the soil. Now, for example, if you consider, let's assume this is soil and you have the roots completely present below the soil, right? They grow downwards. That is gravitropism. They uh, grow into the soil, and this forms the root system. Now, what is shoot system? The plant which is present above the soil, right? Your stem, leaves, buds, flower, okay, fruits, all this come under shoot system. Okay, now basically roots, stems, leaves, they form the vegetative parts of a plant. Okay, while sorry flower forms the reproductive part of a plant. Okay, so though plants are quite unique, they're quite different. Okay, they differ in the shape, form, structure, they differ in their size, but still there are certain similarities seen. Any flowering plant has a leaf, it has root, stem, flower, fruit, and a bud. Okay, so let's understand what is the function of each of this plant part. Okay, so to understand the functions of each part of the plant is divided into two systems, that is root system and shoot system. Root system constitutes the roots which are present underground or present below the soil. Shoot system constitutes that part of the plant which is growing above the soil. Okay, now basically root system includes your roots. Okay, shoot system includes whatever is present above the soil, that is stem, leaves, branches. If it bears any flowers, flowers constitute the shoot system. If there are any buds, it constitutes the shoot system. Okay, now try to understand, it is not necessary that every plant should have bud on it or every plant should have flower on it. Okay, so that's the reason the shoot system can have The shoot system constitutes stem and leaves. It may have buds, it may not have flowers, it may have fruits on it or may not have fruits on it. So that's the reason the shoot system usually consists of stems and leaves. Along with it, it might have flowers, fruits, and buds. Okay, root system constitutes roots. Now try to understand roots, stems, and leaves. They form the vegetative part, but flower is the reproductive part. It plays a major role in forming more number of offspring. Okay. Now, in order to understand this root system and shoot system, you can do a simple experiment at home. What can be done? Take any plant like hibiscus or tulsi plant. Okay, you can take any plant, or it need not be tulsi or hibiscus. You can take any plant that's available in your garden. Now, what you do is first pour water in the soil. Okay, make the soil slightly, see that the soil is moist by pouring water, and dig the soil. Okay, so that the soil is not completely toughened. You make the soil loose by adding water and slightly digging the soil. Okay, then what do? Slowly uproot the plant. Okay, with the help of your hands, slowly uproot the plant. Then you will see something like this, because the roots are completely underground. All the soil particles get attached to the roots. Now what do you do after uprooting? Remove the plant and wash it under water. Once you wash, you see the plant something like this. Okay, so what have we done in this experiment? You have chosen a plant in a garden, and uh, you want to uproot that plant. So if you directly uproot the plant, what happens? The roots remain in the soil because they're firmly attached to the soil. You will get only the stem, but I want the complete plant with the root system and shoot system. Okay, so that's the reason what you do. You pour water into the soil so that the soil is loosened. Okay, uh, as a result of which, when you uproot, slowly even the roots start coming out. Okay, because you have you have dug the soil, as a result of which the roots slowly can be easily uprooted. Okay, so you have chosen a plant in the garden, you have poured some amount of water in the soil, and then uprooted the plant. And since this roots are completely buried in the soil, soil particles get attached to the roots, so you wash the entire plant. Okay, now you can clearly see that this forms the root system, which constitutes the roots, and this constitutes your shoot system, which comprises of the stem, branches, leaves. Okay, here the shoot system comprises of branches, stems, and leaves. Are there any flowers, fruits, or buds? No. If a plant has flowers, fruits, or buds, even it forms a part of the shoot system. Okay, so this experiment is just for you to simply know what is the root system and the shoot system comprises of. So, root system comprises of roots, and shoot system comprises of stem, leaves, flowers, fruits, or buds. Okay, you can easily do this experiment at home. You can choose any plant, but before you uproot the plant, see that you sprinkle some water in the soil so that the soil is kept moist and roots can be uprooted. Otherwise, what happens if you won't pour water in the soil and keep the soil for some time moist? If it's not done, then when you uproot the plant, the stem comes but not the roots. The roots get firmly attached to the soil. Okay, so in detail, let's understand what is root system, what is the function of roots, and are there any modifications of these roots. Okay, so what does root system mainly comprise of? It consists of primary roots, secondary roots, and root hairs. Okay, now what are primary roots? Let's assume this is soil. Okay, you have the roots that are developing. Okay, sorry. Now this is your main stem, and here you have leaves. Okay, now try to understand. When I say primary root is the root that develops from the stem. Okay, develops from the base of the stem. Now see, this is your stem. We all know this is stem. At the base of the stem, you can see that roots have developed, right? This is one root, this is the other root. These roots are known as primary roots. Okay, primary roots basically arise from the base of the stem. And these primary roots they basically develop certain side roots. You can see here. Those roots are known as secondary roots. Is it clear? Primary roots, they develop from the base of the stem. You can see here there are three such things that they constitute the primary roots. From the sides of the primary roots, you can see again roots developing. They are called secondary roots. Apart from this, you can also observe that there are certain like end parts of the primary and secondary root. You can see small hair like structures. Okay, the end part of primary root and even secondary root, small hair like structures, they constitute root hairs. They are called root hairs. Okay, hair like structures that develop at the tips or at the ends of primary and secondary root, they constitute the root hair. So basically root system consists of roots, only roots. Okay, the parts that are involved in root system is roots, and these roots are present underground below the soil. And what does it comprise of? It consists of primary roots, secondary roots, and root hairs. What is primary root? It is the root that develops from the base of the stem. If you see this picture, in this picture, this is a primary root, this is also a primary root, this is a primary root, because they are directly developing from the base of the stem. And any roots arising from the primary root, they are all lateral roots. You can see here, they are all lateral roots. And from the lateral roots, you can see small hair like projections, then they are called root hairs. Secondary roots are also known as lateral roots because they develop sideways, okay, from the main primary roots. Now, we all know that flowering plants are basically your angiosperms. Angiosperms are again classified into monocots and dicots based on the number of seed leaves or number of cotyledons, right? So angiosperms are classified into dicots, which have two cotyledons. Monocots have a single cotyledon, right? Now, if you see dicots, in dicots, the root system is taproot system. Okay, what type of root system is seen in dicots? Taproot system is mainly observed. Okay, now basically, what are taproots? In taproot, you have a main root. This is the main root from which lateral roots develop. Okay, and in taproots, if you see, I'll erase this. If you observe carefully in taproot, the roots which the part of the root which develops from the base of the stem, it is thick. Okay, this portion is thick, this portion of the root. While at the end, as it moves down, the portion of the root becomes thin. Okay, so tapering, that's what they say. At one end, it is quite thick, the root, whereas at the other end, the part of the root is quite thin. Okay, so hence that's about tap root, where you have a single main root, and from the main root, lateral roots start developing. Okay, so that is about taproot system. Next is, and this taproot system is mainly seen in dicots like your mango, neem, mustard, pea. In these plants, you find taproot system. Next is in monocots. Monocots have single cotyledon or one seed leaf is seen, and these show fibrous roots. What are fibrous roots? As you can see the picture here, you have the main stem. From the main stem, there are many roots which arise as a cluster, as a group. Bunch of roots are arising from the base of a stem. Then they are said to be fibrous roots. And unlike your taproot, in taproot we know that one end of the root is thick in size, the other end is thin in size. Whereas in fibrous root, the roots are all uniform in size. Okay, no such thick and thin. They are completely uniform in the size. Okay, same size and thickness throughout. Whereas in taproot, we know that the at the origin it is quite broad or thick, and at the end it's quite thin. Okay, but that's not seen in fibrous roots. So basically, what is root system? It constitutes roots, and these roots are present underground or below the soil, where the root system comprises of primary roots, secondary roots, and root hairs. Primary root is the roots which develop from the base of the stem. Secondary roots are lateral roots. They basically arise from the from the sides of the primary roots. And what are root hairs? These are small hair like structures developing from the ends of primary and secondary roots. Now, in dicots, we see the presence of taproot system, whereas in monocots, we see the presence of fibrous root system. Okay. Next, roots can also be classified as true roots or adventitious roots. Okay, what are true roots basically? We all know that when there is fusion of male and female gamete, you see the formation of zygote. Zygote later develops into embryo. During this embryo, or we all know seed is present, right? The seed, when favorable conditions are provided, the seed germinates in order to develop into a sapling. Yes or no? Now, basically, when the seed is germinating, it produces a structure known as plumule, and it produces another structure known as radicle. Radicle gives rise to root, plumule gives rise to shoot. Okay, and this root that develops from the radicle in the embryo is said to be a true root. Okay, true roots are roots which develop from the radicle of the embryo. What are adventitious roots? These are the roots which develop from stem or leaves. Okay, unlike true roots they develop basically from the radicle or the plumule region. When the seed germinates, it produces structures known as radicle or plumule. Radicle gives rise to root, plumule develops into shoot. Now, those roots, the roots which develop from the radicle of an embryo, are said to be true roots. Adventitious roots, these are the roots which basically develop from any other part of the plant, like from the leaves or the stems. Okay, we will see the examples later. But best example is you can try this experiment at home where you can take a pea seed or maybe any gram, pulses or red gram, Bengal gram, anything, and soak it in water and then take the pea or the bean and sow it in the soil. Okay, after a few days you can see that the seed starts germinating. You can see that when the seed germinates, first there is a small structure that develops, and this is your radicle. Okay, this radicle, as it grows, it develops into root. The root that develops from the radicle is said to be a true root. If root develops from stem or leaves, it's said to be an adventitious root. Okay. Now, adventitious roots are seen in banyan. They're found in sugar cane, maize. Okay. We'll look into it, but roots are classified into true roots and adventitious roots. True roots, they develop from the radicle. Okay. Functions of roots. There are two functions that a root can perform: primary function and secondary function. What are primary functions? Primary function is nothing but the basic function of a root. Now, whether it is tulip plant or whether it is coriander plant or whether it is tomato plant or whether it is a banyan tree or whether it is a mango tree or whether it is a neem tree or whether it is a tulsi plant, any plant has roots, right? Now, what is the basic function of a root? That is what we are understanding here. Is fixation. That means it allows the plant to get fixed into the soil. It sees that if there are no roots, then the plants cannot firmly get attached to the soil. So, roots help in the firm attachment of the plant to the soil. That's the first primary or basic function of a root. Second is absorption. Roots also help in absorption of water. We pour water to the plants in the soil, right? Now, this water which is present in the soil must be absorbed by the roots. So, roots help in absorption of water and even minerals which are present in the soil and provided to the to various parts of the plant. Roots also prevent soil erosion. What is soil erosion? Soil erosion is where soil is carried away by wind. That is soil erosion. Now, what do roots do? They prevent soil erosion. How? Roots, I told you, they help in proper fixation of the plant to the soil. So they firmly bind the soil particles. They tightly hold on to the soil particles. So even when there is heavy wind, then even then the soil can't be taken away by wind. That's because soil is tightly held by your roots. Clear? So basically, what are the basic functions of root? It helps in fixation, allows the plants to get firmly attached to the soil. It helps in absorption of water and minerals. Whatever water we provide to the soil, who is actually providing it to the plant? Roots absorb the water from the soil and give it to various parts of the plant. Okay. Prevent soil erosion. So soil erosion is where soil is being carried away by wind. Now roots prevent this soil erosion. How do they do it? Roots, we know that roots grow deeper into the soil and they tightly bind to the soil particles, as a result of which the soil particles cannot be carried away by wind. So these are primary functions of root. In any plant, these are the functions of a root. Now let's understand what are the secondary functions. Secondary functions are found only in few plants, not in all plants. Okay. Now, in some plants, roots help in storage of food, not in all plants. These are the functions which are seen in all plants. In any plant, you can see root helps in fixation. Roots help in absorption of water and minerals. They help in preventing soil erosion. But secondary functions are found only in few plants. In some plants, roots help in storage of food. In some, they help in providing mechanical support. Okay, we'll understand it with better examples. Only then you can understand the secondary function. But I hope you are clear with the basic functions or the primary functions of a root. Root system constitutes of primary root, secondary root, and root hairs. Primary roots are the roots which develop from the base of the stem. Secondary roots are the lateral roots or roots which develop sideways. And root hairs are the hair-like structures developing from the ends of primary and secondary roots. And we also discussed about the classification of roots into true roots and adventitious roots. What are true roots? Roots which develop from the radicle. Uh, from in an embryo, whereas adventitious roots develop from any part of the plant like stems or leaves. Okay. Now we have discussed about the basic functions. These are seen in any part of the plant. Coming to secondary functions, found only in certain plants. That is, in some plants the roots get modified for storage of food. In some plants the roots help in providing mechanical support. Let's understand the modifications of root. The first modification is for storage of food. Okay. Now this modifications of any plant, root helps in absorption of water and minerals from the soil. Roots help to see that the plant is firmly attached to the soil, and roots help in preventing soil erosion. But in some plants, the roots get modified for storage of food. Examples include carrot, turnip, radish, sweet potato. We have other examples as well, like dahlia, asparagus. So, in some plants, the roots are modified for storage of food. Now, if you see in carrot, the root is conical in shape, right? Cone shaped. In turnip, it is spherical. In radish, it is said to be spindle shaped. Okay, whatever you see, this part, the spherical part, or the conical part, or the spindle shape means something like this. You have tapering ends or pointed ends at both. Okay, that is said to be spindle shaped. Now, all these are roots. Okay, so what actually happens in these plants is here the roots are swollen, they are very fat. Why? Because they store food. Food is stored in the roots, and since there is accumulation of food in the roots, so the roots are swollen. Okay, they are fat enough. And what happens to the food? The food that is present inside the roots are utilized later by the plant for various functions. Okay. Now, basically, such roots where the roots are present underground in the soil, they store food, and since they are storing food, the roots swell. Such roots are called as tuberous roots. Okay. So, basically, in carrot, turnip, sweet potato, radish, food is stored in roots, and the roots swell up and become thick due to accumulation of food. Such swollen roots which store food, they are said to be tuberous roots. Okay, these are utilized whenever the plant requires the food. Whenever, for example, if there are unfavorable conditions for a plant where there is no proper sunlight, you are not providing proper water. Okay, then in such cases, what happens? The plant utilizes the food that is stored in this roots. Okay, that's about modification of roots for storage of food. These roots are called tuberous roots. Second is for additional support. In some plants, what happens is the roots, I told you, what are true roots? Roots which develop from radicle. What are adventitious roots? Roots which develop from any other part of the plant. Now, here you can see, we know these are branches in a tree, right? From the branches, can you see roots developing? This is banyan tree. Okay, and this is screw pine, sugarcane, maize. In all these, you can observe that in all four banyan, screw pine, sugarcane, and maize, you can see that roots are developing from the stem, right? So they're adventitious roots. Now, in banyan tree, what actually happens is roots are developing from the stem, and these grow and again get deeply buried in the soil. Roots develop from the stems. These roots are only used for playing, making swings in the banyan tree. Okay, but as these roots grow, they get firmly attached to the soil. Okay, and thus provide support to the plant. The same thing happens in screw pine. Okay, and such roots are said to be prop roots. Okay, so here what's actually happening, you have the tree, you have the branches. From the branches, roots arise. These roots are basically used for playing as swings, or you use uh, like those roots. With those roots only you start hanging, right? But these roots later, as the tree grows, the roots grow deep into the soil and provide support to the plant. Such roots are found in banyan and screw pine. They are called prop roots. What about sugarcane and maize? In sugarcane and maize, the stem that you see is very weak. Okay, so chances, since the stem is very weak, there are high chances that the plant can eventually bend and die. Okay, but that's not what actually happens. Why? That's because below the stem, there are certain roots which start developing. Those roots are called stilt roots. Okay, these stilt roots, they basically provide additional mechanical support to the plant, even though the stems in sugarcane and maize are tall and weak. But who is actually providing mechanical support to the plant? It is the roots which are developing from the base of the stem, and these roots are specifically named as stilt roots. Okay, in banyan you find prop roots which develop from the stem only, so they're adventitious roots, but they get firmly attached to the soil. They grow from the stem, again go back into the soil, and act like a pillar, thus providing proper support to the plant. That is seen in banyan and even in screw pine. And what about stilt roots? These roots also develop from the stems, so they're adventitious roots. And since the stem is quite weak in these plants, that is in maize, sugarcane, and all, the stems are tall and they are weak, and hence mechanical support is provided by the adventitious roots which develop from the base of the stem. And these adventitious roots are specifically called as stilt roots. Okay, next. So, firstly, we have talked about modification of roots for storage of food. They are called as tuberous roots. Second, we have talked about modification of roots for additional support, as seen in banyan, that is prop roots, or as seen in maize, stilt roots. In some plants, okay, try to understand modifications of root is for secondary function. Secondary function is not seen in all plants. Okay, it's not necessary that all plants should have tuberous roots, all plants should have stilt roots. No, any plant has a root which helps in proper absorption of water and minerals, proper attachment of the plant to the soil, and also sees that the it, like the roots prevent soil erosion. But in some plants, there are modifications of roots like carrot, turnip, radish, sweet potato. You can see that the roots store food, they swell, and hence they are called tuberous roots. Whereas in banyan and all, the roots provide mechanical support in the form of prop roots or stilt roots. Now, in some members, examples are mangroves. Okay, these plants they grow in marshy areas. Marshy areas means what? Here the land is under waterlogged condition. High amount of water is present in the land. Okay. As a result, what happens? Now let's assume this is soil. Okay. Soil is completely filled with water. If roots grow below the soil, then what happens? After some time, like after few days, the roots start rotting. Okay, and thus plants die. But that shouldn't happen. Okay, why the root starts dying? That's because they're not receiving enough amount of air from the atmosphere. But here in, so that is how the climatic condition is present in marshy areas where you can see that the soil is completely waterlogged. Okay, in such cases what you can see in these plants is you have your stem, leaves and all, everything are growing, roots they grow inside the soil and then they again come upwards. Okay, can you see here? And these roots they have spores in them, and these spores are called pneumatophores. And the pores help in breathing of the roots. Hence, these roots are also known as breathing roots because they help in proper breathing of the plant. Under normal condition, let's assume there is soil with more amount of water and you have roots. Here, what actually happens is the roots cannot properly breathe. There is high suffocation because of waterlogged condition, more amount of water. So, what actually happens? Roots start swell of the roots, whatever they are present, they start rotting. Okay, as a result of which plant eventually dies. But in mangroves, though they grow in waterlogged condition, but still what actually happens? Roots they start growing upwards. That is negatively geotropic. Usually geotropic means growing where the roots start growing under the soil. But in these mangroves, they start growing upwards. So they're said to be negatively geotropic. And these have small pores that's called as pneumatophores. The pores which are present on those roots are called pneumatophores, or and these pneumatophores help in proper breathing of the roots, hence they are also called as breathing roots. Okay, in which plants you can use observe this in mangroves, and these mangroves grow in marshy areas or waterlogged conditions. Okay, next is modification of roots for absorption of nutrients and water. In money plant, you can observe that basically, you have the stem, and from the stem, roots arise. And these roots help in proper absorption of nutrients and water. They are called as feeder roots because they feed the plant with proper nutrients and water. They are feeder roots. Okay, so in money plant, the money plant develops fibrous roots. That means tufts of roots start developing from the stem. Okay, and these reach the soil and absorb the nutrients and water, and those roots specifically they are called as feeder roots. Okay, so these are certain modifications that can be seen in root system. Basically, plants are diverse, they are unique, there are different types of plants, but all plants have some basic parts and they perform some functions which are similar. Okay. Now, any plant has root system and shoot system. Using an experiment, you can easily observe the root and the shoot system. Root system mainly consists of roots, which includes root hair, primary root, and secondary root. Okay, and angiosperms can be classified into monocots and dicots. Dicots have taproot, monocots have fibrous root. Taproots they have tapering ends, that is pinpointed ends. Okay, whereas the origin is quite thick or broad. Fibrous roots they have a tuft of roots, a bunch of roots together. Okay, and these roots are uniform in size. Root hairs are nothing but small hair-like structures that grow at the tips of the roots. And roots are again classified as true roots and adventitious roots. True roots, they develop from radical. Adventitious roots, they either develop from stem or leaves. Functions of root, basic functions. Any plant shows these functions, that is fixation, absorption, prevent soil erosion. Secondary functions are seen only in certain plants, where roots can be modified to store food. They are called tuberous roots, or they can be modified to provide additional support to the plant, like prop roots in banyan and screw pine, and stilt roots in sugarcane and maize. Or roots can also be modified so that they help in breathing in plants which grow in marshy areas. Now, those roots which help in breathing because they have certain pores in them, they are called pneumatophores or breathing roots. In some plants, roots develop from the stem and help in proper absorption of nutrients and water. They are called feeder roots, which are found in which is found in money plant. Okay, so in today's video, I have just given an intro about uh, Unit 3, Structure and Function of Plants, where we discussed about root system, okay, where root system comprises of primary, secondary roots and root hairs. What is the basic function of root and what are the modifications in a root, okay, how roots are modified for storage of food, for providing proper nutrients, for providing mechanical support, and even for respiration. Okay, so any doubts related to this video, please do comment. And if you like my content, please do like, share, subscribe to my channel Biology Foundation, and enjoy the process of learning. Have a good day. Bye bye.